So you have had an awakening experience. You cannot go back to the regular physical world, but what are you supposed to do in the meantime? This video is I'm gonna give you the points that I notice are working for me for transitioning. And I'm gonna tell you a little bit about my backstory so you can understand the context. I ran a company, I made $250,000. That was like $20,000 a month. And that was the highest money I ever made in my life. And during that time, I thought money would solve my problems, and then it didn't. It don't matter how much money you make. You can put 20, where I put the 20 grand, put 50, put 100, put 10, 100,000, put 200,000. It does not matter the number. The number is irrelevant. You don't feel good. And so nothing can replace the fact that you don't feel good and that you want to feel good. And that's the point. When you get to the point where you just want to feel good about your life and about yourself and just everything, you just want to feel good, that is when you become spiritual. So when I say spiritual, here's what I don't mean. I don't mean that you carry crystals around. I don't mean that you got to grow your hair out really long and quit your job. I don't mean that you have to do any particular thing. You don't have to subscribe to a new ideology. You don't have to join a spiritual group. Normally, spiritual growth happens in silence anyways. It happens away from anything mainstream. Mainstream is the enemy to spirituality. As soon as something goes mainstream, it gets very watered down, very generic, and very pop, so people can package it and sell it. So manifesting in spirituality just trended over the last decade. That trend is ending. So the real spiritual practitioners are going to come out of the woodwork at this point. Spiritual practitioners are people who just want to feel good. And it's like you have a sensitivity to this world that you're so sensitive to stuff in the world that you can't ignore the pain that it gives you. You have a pain in your soul. You can't explain it. You don't like seeing people suffer, but they are suffering. You might even enter social work, or you might have even started a nonprofit, or you give money to a nonprofit. And what you notice is it doesn't work. People are still suffering. People are still in pain. Now you can relieve somebody's pain to some degree, but you're having trouble realizing how to eradicate it from the face of the earth. See, if you're a big thinker, like if you've done any success in business or you've done anything at a high level, you are a big thinker. You want to solve the problem once and for all. When it comes to suffering, we have campaigns against drugs, campaigns against this, campaigns against that. And I don't know how many times we got to do it to realize it doesn't work. And you have to come to the point where you realize the only thing that will work is a change in consciousness, a change in my mental makeup, the way I think. So when I was making my money and I had the relationship I wanted, that relationship was incredible, yes. But as soon as I woke up, it changed. The business I had was incredible, yes. But as soon as I woke up, realized the limitations of money, it changed. And I remember I'm walking into the store and I'm pissed off. I have all the money I want. I'm walking in the store, I'm pissed off. My wife at the time, my ex-wife, me and her were arguing. We just had a disagreement. I said, damn, money does not solve this problem. And once I realized that, I realized the limitations of money. I had power too. I had power over my office. I had power over my business. I could do whatever I wanted with my business. I got these contracts with big box retailers. I got plenty of leads. I got unlimited leads. Main thing businesses struggle with is leads and closing. I'm a master at it. I'm getting leads and closing every day. I'm making more and more money every day. I feel good about it. At the same time, that was empty. There was nothing left for me. So I walk into a bookstore, Barnes and Nobles, and I pick up this book called A New Earth. Had no idea who Eckhart Tolle even was, but I was open-minded, curious, put it in my CD player in the car. And what comes out is exactly the thing that I had been looking for. And Eckhart Tolle starts to talk about the first time a flower bloomed on the earth. That this was a very momentary a very in a split moment thing. The flower probably didn't live that long, but the flower was an expression of a higher consciousness of vegetation. It was probably the first thing that ever manifested that didn't have a utilitarian value. It wasn't useful for any particular thing for survival. It was just beauty. And that was the first time that the plant life, you could say it was an awakening, the first flash of awakening of plant life. And he's talking about how human beings have that same thing happening to them right now. We are blooming like a flower. The first flowers were Jesus and Buddha and Krishna. Those were the first flowers of awakening in human consciousness of people who disidentified with the mind, with the content, should I say, of the mind. They didn't believe they were the content. They had gone beyond to rest in their intelligent beingness of who they were. That's totally different from thinking. So what I realized after reading that book is I'm addicted to thinking, and thinking is what causes the problems and the suffering in my life. And I remember the first time I got introduced to that concept, it was so foreign. But the more I realized the truth of it, the more I had to accept it. I had to back up from my thoughts. And I'm gonna give you an example. Making videos like this, one of the thoughts that go through my mind as an accomplisher person, and maybe you'll resonate with this, is how am I gonna turn this into money? How am I gonna turn this into outcomes, sales, money? That was my whole jam for a long time. I did sales and marketing. And you'll notice this video is not a sales and marketing video. I don't have anything to sell you. I don't have anything to give you. You already have what it is you're looking for. I'm just trying to get you to look in the box that you're sitting on, the box that you are being a beggar on. So he told a story. He said there was a beggar who was on the street. A guy walked by, beggar hold out the cup. You got any spare change? He said, no, I don't have any spare change. But what you sitting on? He said, oh, it's just an empty box. He said, have you ever looked in the box? He said, no, I never looked in the box. He said, maybe you should take a look in the box. He looks in the box, and he'd been sitting there for years. It was gold in the box. So the man had been sitting on a box of gold that looked rusty and dusty, had no idea. What he explained was, this is exactly the situation for you. You are sitting on gold. You are what you've been looking for. It's not only the solution to the way you feel, but it's also the manifestations in the physical world of what you want. Because physical manifestations are only the physical correspondence of what you experience inside. So it's an identity that you are inside that manifests itself in outside circumstances. And that's what happens. That's how we create our world. So you actually don't have to pay attention to the external world. There was another story Sam Rossi told in her book, Quantum Networking. Talked about her rich mentor, or Andre's rich mentor. And the rich mentor, he said he didn't consider people to be rich because they had money. He said what he considered to be money was the internal experience he had from things. So his riches, and this guy was rich in physical money too, which made him very unique. He considered the internal experience he had as the payback and as the currency that he was looking for. He's considered feelings to be money, because he said, the only thing I get from money is the feeling it gives me. So the feelings I get are the money. That was his whole concept. And so realizing that the way you feel, switching your mind from believing that the things you get is the thing, rather than the feelings you feel to create and generate is the thing, you miss the point. And in the Bible, they talk about sin, and sin, the definition of it is missing the mark or missing the point. And sin leads to misery and death, which means missing the point leads to your suffering. And that's the reason you're suffering. This is the kind of stuff that I ran into and figured out a along the way about why am I suffering when I have everything that I want. Realized I didn't have everything that I really wanted. I had stuff that I relatively wanted and I thought would solve my big problems. That was the only reason I invested my life force in creating it. But when I realized more and more every day that it is the feelings that I get inside that I'm looking to generate and create, just like I did when I was younger, just like I did when I was making and creating success. You can lose that and start clinging on to securities the older you get. So I'm 34 right now. Now, I'm not old by any means. I'm still young. Most people don't, quote, succeed until after 40. And I understand why. It's like a wisdom thing. It's life experience. You got to see enough cycles. But I'm coming into this point where I realize feelings are the secret. Just like Neville Goddard says in his book, feelings are the secret. But the concept that the currency I get back is the feelings I get, that is a different concept that I got to train myself on. My mentor told me, here's another thing that helps. My mentor told me that there's 4 magical steps to learning. The first magical step is realizing that you don't know what you don't know. That there are systems and laws that are in place right now affecting you, that you are bound to and cannot escape from, that you did not create, that you don't know about. So you are bound to laws that you have no idea exist. So that's number 1. Number 2 is to realize that you don't know what those laws are. And you don't know what they are because you keep trying to do what you want to do and it doesn't work. Number 3 is you learn how to apply this knowledge in a way that does work for you, that gives you the happiness and freedom. Really, it's freedom that you want from your mind and from being imprisoned on a slave planet, if you even want to go that far. So with that being said, you have a desire for freedom. You have a system that can get you free. And now it's time to practice at the level of conscious competence. This is the hardest thing to do. Where most people fail is if they get a system, which Buddhism is one of those systems. Zen Buddhism is one of those systems. Kabbalistic teachings is one of those systems. If you get into a system that's been proven to work over centuries of time for everybody who uses it, you can apply that system. Challenge is getting yourself to muscle memory so it's happening automatically without you even thinking about it. That's the difficult part. So what do you have to do? You have to practice thoughts. What's the thought you have to practice? You have to practice separating the money from the feelings. The feelings have to become your currency. You have to inside love. When you love what you are doing, that's the money. That's the payoff. That's the wisdom. You have to consider that to be the wisdom. That's a thought that you have to train yourself on because you don't naturally think that way. And since you don't naturally think that way, it's difficult to accept that thought. If you don't consciously and on purpose focus on the feelings as the currency, guess what's going to happen? You will slip back into feeling like the money is the currency, the house is the currency, the person is the currency, the person you want, the money you want, the body you want. You think those will give you something. You're not realizing a real point. Feelings are the secret. Follow your bliss. Do what you love to do and can't help but to do because it gives you so much satisfaction. Never do anything that you do not truly in your gut soul want to do because that's poverty. Poverty comes from thinking you have to do stuff to get other stuff that you think is the point. You think that money's the point. So poverty is, I must do work to make money and I'm working to an end, which is money. That is an effect, not a cause. So I'm actually working for an illusion. That's poverty. Because here's what's going to cause the poverty. The poverty is you are going to hate what you're doing. You don't like what you're doing. You will be dissatisfied with what you're doing, not realizing that the dissatisfaction is the poverty. The person who's in poverty is the person who's poor in spirit. They don't feel good. But tell our brains that. Tell our lizard brain that. Tell our survival brain that, it's going to deny it. So we have so many thoughts that are momentous, that keep the real beliefs, the real truths, should I say, away. We don't believe that just feeling good. You're like, tell me to feel good? That's hippie stuff. At the same time, the only reason that you are doing what you do is because you're going to get a feeling from it in your belief system. That's the only reason you're doing it. So you just have unexamined motives. Having an unexamined motive is a problem. You got to put it under a microscope.